Hi everyone, it's Emil Guillermo. Emil Amok to you. Welcome to my Takeout, Emil Amok's Takeout. My takes on all things considerable, and I wasn't there. I was not in Milwaukee, but I feel like I experienced the way I experienced the convention the way conventions should be experienced, because it's a television show, right? It is a television show primarily. I mean, of course, you get the people around and you get the little things that people drop on you, like the little bits of scooplets and information, and yeah, that's important. But for the rank and file American who's interested in how politics works in this country, if you just watched the convention on C-SPAN, watch the speeches, and you could do this for the Democrats coming up in a month or so, you get a sense of what's going on politically in our country. And I'm glad I have attended either live or in person both conventions since like 1980. And this one, like I was during the COVID years, just watching. I think that's what made me think, oh, I don't have to do gavel to gavel. I don't have to, be there. I don't have to pay the expense to be there, especially when I wasn't working for a multi-million-dollar corporation. But I appreciated what the Republicans did because it was a show. But a couple things made me feel funny about yesterday. And one was the acceptance speech, and I'm going to talk about that. But the other was that one of the key speakers on the final night, when the president or the former president would be accepting the nomination of the GOP, one of the key speakers was Hulk Hogan. That bothered me. Suddenly, I mean, I'm not as liberal as I thought. Suddenly, I got real conservative. Suddenly, I thought, oh my God, Hulk Hogan is speaking at a political convention of the top two political parties in our country. I mean, I can see maybe on day one of four, or maybe as a sideshow, because it was a sideshow, but to be the main speaker, not the main speaker, but one of the main speakers on the final day when the nominee accepts formally the nomination, I just felt it was slightly undignified. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but that's the way I felt. Hulk Hogan, and then I thought, maybe this is the thing. This is the value of Donald Trump, because he is making all these people who otherwise would be considered low information voters, not really paying attention. And who pays attention to politics in July besides, political nerds? Maybe that's his thing, to say, hey, you need to pay attention to this. And so while I think I was, on the one hand, really offended by seeing Hulk Hogan up there, on the other hand, I said, well, maybe this makes people who otherwise would not be aware of politics, brings them into the tent, and that's good. So only the nerds are offended. But all these other people who sort of have a passing, interest, are now suddenly interested. Same thing was when on Monday, Amber Rose, the rapper. Have you seen Gyho? Gyho, her song? Look it up sometime. Hard for me to imagine any serious political person humming Gyho as they're walking to the ballot box or considering some kind of political stance. Although I'm all for Amber Rose, because she's kind of like the GOP secret weapon. If she can enlarge that tent, well, maybe that's okay. I don't really see it. A rapper worth millions of dollars, multiracial rapper, saying that, oh, among the Trumpsters, I have found a home. The left told me to hate everyone, but I love these people. I don't buy that. Anyway, we're going to bring up Professor Daniel Phil Gonzalez in a second. But first, I want to go to my column that I wrote for the ALDEF blog, aaldef.org/blog. I wrote about the speech. I wrote about Trump's speech, and I called my essay, Two Trumps Diverged. Not into Yellowwood. That'd be kind of Asian, huh? Two Trumps diverged at RNC as luck runs out with the acceptance speech. And I mean, I have to admit, I was praying for Donald Trump on Saturday, but I wasn't praying for him last night because he showed me you can stop praying if you're praying for Donald Trump. Since at least a third of all Asian American voters said they would vote for Trump, according to a recent Asian American national survey, I'm sure there are some of you out there, Asian American Filipino Catholics, saying an extra rosary since last Saturday. And I just admitted that I may have said a little prayer to make sure the guy didn't die. Well, now we can all go back to praying for our Lolos and Lolas. Trump's back to normal, born again. No, it's the same old Don the Con. On the last day of the RNC, the Republican National Convention, the former president accepted the nomination of his party and then rambled on for over 90 minutes. And what's being called the longest speech for a nomination acceptance by a major party figure in modern American history. That is not brag-worthy. The 90-minute length enabled Trump to publicly spew his subconscious political thoughts in real time. It was like his greatest hits. His China virus shout out. Was that a stark reminder of how Trump's words led to the vicious, unrelenting transgressions that inspired Stop AAPI Hate? That was a shout out. That was in there in that 90-minute ramble. The speech was maybe worse than Biden's gaffe, if that you call that a gaffe in the debate, but the speech allowed Trump to ramble incoherently and lie about real facts, as he did in that infamous June 27th debate. He took swipes at Joe Biden, at Nancy Pelosi, by name, fumbled words a number of times. For example, Trump talked about building an Iron Dome. Now that I hadn't heard that before. He wants to build an Iron Dome like Israel's over America. Like a wall in the sky? But for all the bombs that are getting through, I mean, is that maybe for illegal aliens to keep them from airlifting to America? I don't know. I'd never heard about the Iron Dome concept, but he said, oh, it's like Reagan's Starship, spaceship. That's what Trump said. Though he really meant Reagan's Star Wars idea. But that's the real Trump. Much older, forgetful, with a poor memory at age 78. It's the same detailed scrutiny now being given to Biden at every turn, every time he talks. So turnabout is fair play. Let's look at what Reagan, how he stumbles. Reagan's starship idea, spaceship idea. You got to look at it, and it makes you wonder about the criticism being hurled at Biden. Democrats still trying to push him out. Maybe the public will cut the current president some slack after Trump's convention finale that essentially showed his instability and signaled the end of his post-assassination world sympathy tour. I mean, it was all set up for Trump on a tee to show people how to end the kind of divisive politics that leads to acts of violence. Immediately after the assassination attempt on Saturday, remember, Trump was one of those who called for American unity. Was he coming to his senses? Did a bullet convince him of the error of his ways during his 2016-2020 administration? I mean, any change could have swayed some independent voters. who are tired of the coarse, vulgar, and racist tone of our current politics in America. And most all of it, if you think about it, really has emerged since Trump's arrival into politics. I mean, in the past, it was called dirty tricks, right? Dirty tricksters were out doing things. Now it's just Trump's main playbook. So Saturday's bullet made many of us see Trump as a different person. And there were liberal opponents joining in to pray for this man's life. Would this be Trump's deathbed conversion, right? I mean, that was the question all through the week. For the first few minutes of his acceptance speech, Trump, speaking for his first time publicly, which is why this was an important speech, first time publicly since the shooting, he reflected on the incident. I stand before you in this arena only by the grace of the Almighty God, Trump told the crowd. The crowd thought I was dead, he said. And there was this great sorrow. There was blood pouring everywhere. And yet, in a certain way, I felt very safe because I had God on my side. That was the tone for about 10, 15 minutes. Sober, quiet. A mention of God was like Trump's deathbed conversion. The tone turned a bit when Trump began to honor the local Pennsylvania fire chief, volunteer firefighter, Corey Comparatori, who was shot and killed at the rally. He threw his body over his family to protect them. And it was just weird. Trump stood by Comparatori's uniform. It was there on display on a hanger. And he even kissed the helmet. It felt staged, it felt manipulative, and it was a little jarring. Because didn't we just a half hour before see how Trump imports into American politics the likes of white rapper Kid Rock? Or how he brought in wrestler Hulk Hogan, or the UCF guy, or UFC guy, Dana White. Different kind of celebrity than the Dems' George Clooney, huh? A wrestler on the final day of a serious political convention in the group leading up to the nominee. It sounds like a satire. Or a party. And maybe it would have been fine if it stayed with that victory party air, because when Trump brought up the fire chief's uniform as a prop, it changed the convention. The convention vibe from fun to funereal. I mean, honoring Comparatori in a separate event, yeah, that would have been fine. Maybe much better. But Trump, of course, wanted the emotion of Saturday all for himself. Because that's what sways, that's how you dig in and you capture people's hearts and minds. He brought out that firefighter uniform. He did his thing, and I think it backfired. Trump should have just carried on with a few more choice, pre-written sound bites like the ones he read off the prompter at the very beginning. Remember, at the beginning he said, anticipating victory in November. He's already got a big head about it. He said, together we will launch a new era of safety, prosperity, and freedom for citizens of every race, religion, color, and creed. Ah, there is the unity, right? He brought us all together there. The discord and division in our society must be healed, and must heal quickly. As Americans, we are bound together by a single fate and shared destiny. We rise together or we fall apart. We're all Americans, not half of America, because there is no victory in winning half of America. Trump's words, which was about as solid an image of a changed, unifying Trump that we were going to get last night. There was no mention of his divisive anti-woman, anti-abortion, anti-Roe v. Wade stance. Not even when he switched to rally mode for the balance of the 90-minute speech. Maybe because if he's close to God, maybe he's fearful that God might be a woman. But when he switches over to the balance of his speech, that's when we got the same old Trump. The political stream of consciousness, illegal aliens bad, inflation bad, Biden bad and weak. He threw in praise for Aileen Cannon, the federal district judge who threw out the documents in the Mar-a-Lago bathroom case. That's my shorthand for it. Oh, you mean the documents of the Mar-a-Lago bathroom case? The one with AAPI Walt Nauta, the Guamanian American, as co-defendant? The one with all the damning evidence? Yeah, what about all the damning evidence? Oh, no, forget it. Judge Cannon dismissed the case, ruling that the appointment of a special prosecutor was unconstitutional. Would you expect more from a judge who was a Trump appointee? And then there were the lies. Inflation at record highs. No more. It's around 3% now. CNN pointed out to more than 20 lies in the rally speech. The rally speech Trump probably would have given on Saturday had there not been a bullet. And while he lied at the convention, the bullet's impact was always present in that white bandage over Trump's right ear. A constant reminder of danger averted. Yeah, it looked like a maxi pad, or it looked like a kind of ear diaper. It was just used for effect. Exploitation. Trump, who again talked about the weaponization of government in the 4 cases against him, including the 34 felony convictions in New York, wore that ear bandage as if it were his white badge of victimhood. But it was his undoing, his string of luck in the last few weeks, and he just seemed to be like the luckiest guy around, right? Ran out. The luck ran out on day 4 of the RNC with that acceptance speech. Hey, one bad speech, one bad night. More than that, it put the assassination attempt into real context. Think of all those images of Trump and the flag standing up, fist pumping after being shot at. It didn't give us a changed man. We hoped for a changed man. But it's just the same old Trump. Bloodied, bandaged, vengeful. A stark reminder of his chaotic first administration and the damage that his second one would do to America. And that was the column I wrote for the Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund. Go to aldef.org/blog. Read it yourself. I had a few embellishments, but it's there. And so immediately after that speech, a lot of people said, hey, new campaign, new ball game. Except the Dems are still trying to figure out who their candidate is. And so let's bring up friend of the show, Professor Daniel Phil Gonzalez, College of Ethnic Studies, San Francisco State University, Asian American Studies, Filipino American Studies, Politics, Democracy. Here he is, Daniel Phil Gonzalez. Hi, Dan.
Hi. Good to see you again. It must be Friday afternoon.
Oh, yeah, it's Friday. We always bring Dan up to talk about the news, especially after yesterday's speech. So tell me, was it a new campaign? Did the speech kind of reset? And
According to Trump supporters, yes, it was all of the above. It was unifying. It was a new Trump, and everything he said was true. That's all of the interviews that I've seen. That's what they're saying. Even
that's what the
panel.
Trump people say.
That's what Trump people say.
All right, but based on like what
if there are in-betweeners, right, that are still trying to make up their mind, which is a shrinking population at this point, they're saying same old Trump.
Right.
He started out with a unifying tone, and that only lasted 15 or 20 minutes. I'm surprised it went on that long, but a lot of that 15 to 20 minutes was him describing getting shot.
Yeah.
So
Right. I mean, so it's all self-serving. I thought that when he brought out the fireman's gear as a prop was
that was pretty
embarrassing.
bad, you know.
Embarrassing. And
And it was literally was a prop, and that's pretty bad.
well,
Uh,
it exposed his intentions. It exposed his credibility. It showed that he was, not sincere with anything. And you
well,
know,
according to his wife, she never got a call from him. That she got a call from Biden, but she didn't get a call from Trump. Now that may have changed, but at the time that the story I saw was printed,
mm,
um, she had not gotten a call from Trump. This is pretty common. I mean, when there have been tragedies like in Ohio, the railroad tragedy and all that, people were ticked off because Biden didn't immediately go to the site. During Trump's administration, he didn't even acknowledge people's tragedies. Uh, Instead, he tried to draw maps that showed what states were going to be hurt by a hurricane that didn't happen. The
yeah,
hurricane happened, but the map didn't happen.
yeah, but
So basically nothing moved. Okay, so
but
so the
yeah,
RNC had their show. They put on a tight show. They put
yeah,
on a good show. It may make you sick that they have people like Hulk and all these people. It's rank entertainment, right? And that I don't find very serious. I remember as a child watching televised conventions.
mm,
Um, and especially the first one that I ever paid serious attention to was Republicans at the Cow Palace
right. I remember that one.
in the late 50s. Are you old enough for that?
I just remember it on TV.
Oh, okay.
Cow
Yeah,
Palace, Goldwater. I just didn't know um, really what was going on. I mean, I remember it,
right,
and
right.
living in San Francisco, it's in the city.
Well,
But
I got curious. I didn't realize how it was going to affect my interests once I got into high school. But
yeah,
I got curious simply because our house was on Geneva Avenue, which is right on the way to the Cow Palace, and I literally watched the presidential uh, uh, car process go by
yeah,
my house, and so I was watching it on TV, and at the same time, it was actually happening on the street outside my house. So it was kind of interesting that way.
except you had a black and white TV,
That's
and
it,
it
black
was
and
in
white
color.
TV. That's right. It was in living color, although it was kind of an overcast day, so it wasn't quite bright living color. But yeah.
All right,
But
so
anyway,
yeah,
the
but
point
let's
is
go.
that it was a show, and
Yeah,
they put on a tightly scripted show. It was pretty good. The problem is that it was once again 95% falsehoods.
right,
People got up and said things that just were patently untrue. But the Trump faithful all see they believe in all that, beginning with the 2020 election was stolen. And ending with, of course, they tried to kill the president, the
right.
former president.
And also, the it's also this idea that the election was stolen and will be stolen again, right?
Yes,
That-
yeah,
that-
they're setting them up. They're setting it up again. Yeah,
they're repeating, and now they're going to be ready. Ooh, we're going to be ready for it now. We're ready, and it's almost like they are justifying the lie, They're building the lie as it goes, the justifications as it goes, so that people, won't be upset because you can't really prove their well. You can prove they're being lied to and gaslit, but people just accept. Oh well, we'll take it from our guys if they're telling the truth because they're
uh,
saying
not only do the true Trumpers, the forever Trumpers, but the people who have decided that they're going to vote for Trump even though they don't like him,
mm,
they have to set aside the facts. You can't
right,
you can't accept the substantial aside from 2020 election, right?
yeah,
You can't set all that stuff aside and then actually believe that it's going to be better for you. These people actually believe that the economy was better under Trump.
yeah,
They
and
believe the lie that he created more jobs. You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
um,
It's funny. If things are better for them now, they should just shut up. But because it's all self interest, and they believe this is the way they win. Uh,
Everything that he claimed
yeah,
that they achieved was actually done during the Biden administration,
right.
a year and a half in, so in a relatively short period of time, beginning about 6 months into his administration and
Mm-hmm.
then going out to about maybe a year and a half ago, a year, maybe a full year ago, right?
Hmm.
All of that stuff happened in a relatively short period of time. And
Yeah.
so I thought it was really stupid when Stefanik said, "What?" She said, "Were you better off 4 years ago?"
The-
That kind of thing.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
thought,
but
let's
military.
just do the comparison day to day. It was really bad. And I thought, man, we were in the middle of COVID. She's saying this stuff. That's so stupid, right?
Well,
But people
yeah,
will buy it.
yeah. It's just they will believe their own lies. Believe the lies to justify the
Oh,
lie.
do you think Stefanik believed that?
Well, she didn't believe it. She didn't believe it early on, but later on, like everyone, like J.D. Vance, who called in 2016, he called Trump American Hitler.
Yeah.
Everyone who's they saw the light and then they turned it off, and
Yeah,
then they just
I have to
live in
disagree with
darkness.
you, man. I mean, my perspective, right? That politics and belief systems and all that stuff it's all psychology.
Mhm.
That's the greatest influence in what kind of choices people make is psychology. Okay,
Mm.
but you have to take in mind what their baseline framework of thinking is, what their baseline framework of emotionality is. Okay, and what you're witnessing is that a huge population within American society is vulnerable to BS that makes them feel good,
Yeah.
okay? That
Well.
makes them
Yeah.
feel more secure,
Yeah.
okay? So you scare the hell out of them. You do the
Per-
American carnage.
pe-
That was
People
so
are going to come
real.
to get you. People are going to come to get you.
They got you. They have gotten you. You have suffered. And you will suffer more. Okay,
Right.
and then hundreds of thousands of people have died as a result of illegal immigrants coming across that damn border.
I
And then
can't
you got
believe.
Vance saying,
Yeah.
I come from a family that was vexed, right,
Yeah.
by addictions, and then he says it's fentanyl.
Yeah.
Fentanyl wasn't the issue.
It's
It was
those
called
illegal.
OxyContin. And
Yeah.
why people were taking oxy? Because it was prescribed. And
Right.
when they ran out and they couldn't get any more prescriptions because the federal government started chasing down doctors that were overprescribing, then they went to the illegal market.
Right.
Okay?
Wait, we forgot another half step. And who was benefiting from those OxyContin sales? But the richest Americans.
Yeah, the
Who
Statler family, etc.
the Sacklers. This is the
Yeah.
thing. This- yeah.
And who just been burned twice, right? For money and then for criminality. I mean,
Yeah.
let's do it. Let's do
Yeah.
it, folks.
I'll tell you.
But these guys get up there and they lie their butts off, and the people yell, "Yeah!"
Yeah,
They're screaming, man.
that's because look, it's facts
Good
optional.
for
It's
you.
it's facts optional. Everyone just wants to get the feels. It's a convention, and some people can say, okay, look, it's a convention. Uh, let it fly. And then Trump goes off and says all these misleading things and just tells people what they want to hear, right?
Yep.
And all he wants is he's just selling. He's just selling. And unfortunately, what happened is
That's been the whole Republican Party ever since Nixon.
yeah.
When they figured out that Nixon wasn't, it wasn't just his 5 o'clock shadow. Let's face it, he wasn't the handsomest guy in the world, right? In comparison to Kennedy, right?
Mm.
And then let's talk about who makes better speeches, right? All the Democratic presidents have been better speakers all the way down the line, even the ones that I didn't particularly like myself, right? Uh, I
The
remember
likes of
reading
which, yeah,
yeah, well, no, I was reading Clinton's biography before he was even elected. Right, I was on a plane heading for Asia somewhere, and I had the newspaper on my lap, and I was reading his biography, and then it referred to a magazine that we happen to have, on the plane, and so I read a really long, I think it was Atlantic, a long biography on the guy about how he was raised by two women, both of whom had problems with alcoholism, right? And I thought, Oh man, I started thinking about all of the guys that I knew that were raised by single moms, some of whom had alcoholism problems,
Yeah.
and I thought, yeah, the guys were really nice guys, but they had issues, around. It looked like I thought when once we were teenagers and we started making choices about sexual behavior and all that stuff, I thought that they clearly had problems in trying to deal with girls. So I thought, man, Clinton could have issues, and then suddenly we start hearing this stuff about his behavior while he was governor, right? And
Yeah.
I thought, well, well, that's an easy call, okay. And it followed him all the way into the White House with his little, tryst with, I did not have sexual relations with that woman,
Monica
Okay,
Lewinsky. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, look.
but
So,
my cigar did.
well, look.
But
Yeah. Look. But look at Trump. I mean, Trump's. We had the Stormy Daniels case. We had Melania there for the first time last night uh, with him, and it didn't look like. I don't know. I can't tell their relationship. Are they happy? I don't know. But
does it matter? I mean,
no, it's no.
see, that's another who I don't care. That's another I don't care what their relationship is, right?
Yeah,
She
but
had
it,
it. Remember that jacket that you wore?
yeah, but it,
Uh,
but someone cares because they put her out there. If no one cared, they would say, "Stay home in the hotel, Melania.
yeah, it's kind of
You don't have to come."
symbolic. Well, yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
the
yeah.
symbol of
I
it.
mean, we have a marriage that's intact. I can tell you, if the guy loses the next election and she can find an easy way out, she will.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it'll just be a matter of time. But I mean, she kind of knows whether or not he's got that much money anyway,
Yeah.
and I'm sure we don't know if she has a prenup, but I'm sure that he would. You know,
Yeah.
so anyway, that stuff.
So tell
That's
me,
a side action.
yeah,
The
but
real action is what's Joe going to do. It's Joe's
wait.
decision.
No, before we get to that, I just want to just finish off with Trump because the big thing for many of us who showed some empathy for Trump may have. I mean, some people were openly, publicly praying for the man's life,
Yeah, and they were crying.
and
They were crying when he
yeah,
first came out. I mean,
and I think there has to be a sense of betrayal, or we've been lied to by this guy before, but now this is only. I think for people, if you were anti-Trump before, you were even more hardened by it, and which is why I opened my piece by saying you can stop praying. You can stop praying for Trump. No, he's not being, he's not, we're not going to get the deathbed conversion. Every time he mentions God, it's not for real. And maybe, that's why he didn't mention abortion, because if God were a woman, you know, she wouldn't be
so,
happy.
so God is gendered now, right? I mean, I grew up
I,
my whole life with God being a male.
I
Uh,
don't know.
but
I've heard some people say, what if God were a woman? I mean,
yeah,
I
yeah.
think
Well, I
you have,
heard that a long time ago too. But
yeah,
what I came to was, why do we project our own conditions, on a being that's beyond us, so
on God.
yeah.
Well, take down all those pictures of the white guy with the long hair and the beard. Then
Yeah,
you
or
take
the
down
guy
all
the guy at the top of the Sistine Chapel,
yeah,
with the electrical connection,
yeah. I mean, no, I just think that after yesterday, any sense. I mean, the hope that people wanted was we can end the
Oh,
political
come on. That is
violence.
just so naive, man.
No. I think if Donald Trump were smart, if he were really smart, because he could win, he he could win by just being honest for a change. And if he were honest and say, "Look, I'm going to end this division," I went, and he said it. See, he said those words. I don't want half of America. I
You
want
keep
all of
saying,
America.
if he could be honest. The dude is incapable of
I
honesty, my
know, but
man.
I'm
He's a
saying
sociopath,
the
right?
fact,
Minimally.
but the fact that he can't, by his actions, by his speech last night, we see that he can mouth the words, because the words that I quoted in my piece, where he talks about unity, we have to. come together. We have, but but he won't. He wants us to forget uh, about weaponizing government. Let's forget about weaponizing government and come together as a. See, he just can't do it, and it comes across as false. He had a chance when he got shot at. The bullet did him a favor. Not because it spared his life, but because it gave him an opportunity to say, yeah, I hate this division. Let us be one. Let's work together as a country. He tried to say it. The words came out, but they were meaningless because of his actions in that
Well,
final speech. He couldn't
well,
do it. Couldn't do
what
it.
about the rest of the freaking whole RNC
Well,
presentation?
they would take.
You know, even Johnson said, "Oh, I read the wrong speech. They put the wrong speech on the teleprompter." Come
Yeah,
on,
see, look,
man.
but
You know,
but
cut
they
this
take
crap out.
wait. They take their cues from Trump. And if Trump came out and said that and was really, I'm going to be the benevolent dictator. I'm going to be the good. I'm going to end this division. Come on, come
Yeah,
jump
he
on
could
my
have
back.
probably won some people over. I agree with you, but it wouldn't last.
No, but if you talk about the 6% and all those key states, those battleground states, I mean the ones who are already for him, right? It's like 40 who are really ardently for him and 40% who are ardently against him, and it's that 20% in the middle, mostly, you know, that really boiled down to like 6%. If he could win, this 6%, that's all he needs to win a battleground state. And he really could have done it, but say, oh, Trump's coming out, he's against, the kind of division that has made our country so uncivil and has made our country so unpleasant to live in. He could have been a unifier. Instead, he is the same old Donald Trump. And I wanted to hold out some hope because the guy had a near death experience. The guy had a bullet go, whizzing by his right ear. Instead, all the bullet enabled him to do is stick that little white bandage on there, his white badge of victimhood. And I just think missed opportunity and an opportunity for the Democrats. All right, so now we can talk about the Democrats. The Democrats. Who are the Democrats? Uh, Joe Biden has COVID. It's not hurting him too badly. He took Paxlovid. He's working, isolating from home.
You know, people are now saying that if the Democrats were going to want Biden off, they should have made that decision last spring, right?
Right,
And
right,
and my position is you didn't know what you know now last spring. Okay, so
right.
you're asking once again. It's kind of a stupid exercise, right? To look backwards and say shoulda, coulda, woulda when you don't
Can't
have the information that you had now.
All right, you can't do it. You can't make the decision,
Yeah,
6 months
yeah.
ago.
In
But you can make it
retrospect,
now. You can
yes, you
say
can.
now.
Yes, you
You can say
can.
now.
Or what I suggested to you, and I can't remember if it was an offline conversation or if we did it, on your show.
Mm,
But I said there's a proper time to do this, and the way to do it, the way to make the plan, is that Joe has to be involved with the uppermost circle within the Democratic Party to devise a plan. And what I said was he should go ahead and take the nomination, let everybody know that he was going to take the nomination, and then at that point, nice and clean, either make a recommendation to for Harris,
mm,
okay,
mm,
or say we've discussed it with Harris, right, and we're going to go with an open convention, something like that, okay.
mm.
Well, it would be too late to do open convention if he
Yeah,
does it in the pattern that I said,
yeah.
but let's have you know a discussion on who the hell should be at the top of the ticket, and there are a number of ways to do that. I personally think Harris can handle it. I think she can handle the presidency. I
I,
think she
I
has the
think I
capacity
think
to
so
do
too.
that.
But here's the predominant line
Can she get
that comes.
elected?
Well, no, that's one issue. But the dominant line that's come out in discussion is, of course Harris can do it. Why is she being left out of the picture? Of course Harris can do it. She's the only other one on the bank account that has millions of dollars.
That's a good point.
Got She's got the infrastructure. That would be a seamless kind of thing. It's got to be Harris. And if it's not Harris, you're going to upset all the African Americans and the coalition of people of color who are
A
would
lot of
create
women
this.
as well. A lot of women
Yeah,
as
and
well.
the women who would create this backlash. So I think it's got to be Harris, and if it's not Harris, those people are dreaming. The people who don't think, who think, oh, I'm going to insert my name.
Well, there is an element within the White House that didn't like her.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
You know,
I'm sure.
among the West Wing advisors and all the rest of that kind of stuff. Now,
Yeah.
what I want to know is why didn't they like her? What was the issue?
Well,
Because yeah,
yeah. I think they believe the right. Remember all those articles that came out about a year and a half ago? I mean, all of them, damning. If they weren't outright damning, it was damning faint praise, and it just kind of crippled Kamala Harris. I kind of felt sorry for her a
yeah,
little bit
me too.
because they
No,
weren't fair.
I agree with that.
Yeah, and they
But
were they weren't fair.
they were limiting how much she could say out in the open. But then they realized she would be a great tool, right? She could be readily powerful, right?
Yeah, yeah,
On the abortion issue and on the larger issue of women's health,
yeah,
right? Um,
yeah,
and so it's a winner. She
yeah,
also is a very powerful speaker in terms of what they have been able to do during his administration to help people of color and specifically African Americans.
yeah,
So
and Asian
she has
Americans too.
yes heavy duty. Yes,
Yeah.
she has heavy. Well, I kind of subsume that under people of color because most people don't want to recognize the fact that she's half Asian. So
Well, that was always my beef with her too. When she ran for president, she did not mention her Asian American side until she had to,
yeah,
until she had to bring up her mother. And when she brought up, she always brought up Howard, brought up her father. Yeah, I went to Howard. I'm a sorority gal,
yep, sorority.
and the blackness was there. Yeah, we got it. She's African American, but she is also Asian American, and she's always copped to that when she had to. And I always said, I mean, on the she was on the scene running for a good 3-4 months before the big debate. I think it was in the June of 2019. She had to admit, oh, here's my mom. My mom is a cancer researcher. She's Indian American. She raised me. She was great. And then, of course, when she won with, after Biden picked her, she caused all these kind of fits for the media who had to say, oh, the first African American, first Asian, South Asian, or first
Yeah,
Asian.
they had to include it now.
Yeah. And,
Well,
and
but
it's still
what
tough.
happened? What happened with Obama?
Yeah. Well, Obama, same thing, you
Yeah,
know?
well, no, it was worse. I think what she was trying to avoid was what happened to Obama when he first declared, and people said this guy ain't black. He's not. He remember he wasn't black enough,
Right, 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 right.
and that was in and of itself racist. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, so you have, I had a hard time explaining this to students. Right?
Yeah.
Wait. Are you saying that black people can be racist against a black man because he's half white? And I said, hell yes, I am.
Yeah.
Okay, I see it all the time,
Yeah.
Emil.
Yeah.
You've seen it too.
Yeah.
You
But,
see our own people reject people of mixed race, mixed ethnicity, right?
yeah.
Because they're mixed. That happens all the way down the line. Every Asian group, right? Particularly new immigrants, the first generations, right? They have that. They're more interested in cultural authenticity than
Yeah.
accepting people who are of mixed race and mixed ethnicity. They observe a hierarchy, which is just like white racist hierarchy on
Mm,
which racial groups
yeah.
are smarter, are harder workers, have
I know.
better socioeconomic status. They do all of that.
See,
Okay,
that's why, how Filipinos love whitening creams.
that's
They
what
love,
I bring that up in my classes.
Filipinos
When you
love
go
whitening creams.
into a 7-Eleven, you go into
Yeah.
a 7-Eleven in Manila,
Yeah.
right? And they got the food side and they got the other side. What is up front on the opposite side, opposite the food, you know? And it's a whole bunch of whitening cream.
Whitening cream. And see, this is why with me, I just took the next step. Hell with the whitening cream. I'm just going to marry a white woman. And then
Okay.
that didn't do it for me, but maybe
Oh
for my
man,
kids, they don't
that
need the
is
whitening
so
cream.
that is so insulting, man. You know,
How is that insulting? How is
is,
that
is
insulting?
Kathy listening to you right
Wait,
now?
wait, wait.
Damn, that's
How
bad.
is that insulting? Insulting to what? My
Right.
kids?
Because you said instead of whitening cream, I just skipped it. I married a white woman.
Right.
Oh,
I didn't want
that
whitening
that
cream.
lessons
I
that
don't
puts
need
your
that
wife
cream.
somewhere in between whitening cream and I don't know biological manifestation.
No,
I
no.
don't know what that is. I
It's
don't
not
know what
me.
that is. That's like,
It's
okay,
not
I'm gonna
me.
cut my screw assimilation. I'm gonna go all the way for acculturation, because that's good. That's what it was meant to do.
No. Here's
That
my
is
point. My
horrible.
point.
That was
My
really
point.
horrible.
No, no, no. My point is that
Oh, you were trying to be
multiracial
funny. No, not
multiracial
funny.
people are misunderstood and not accepted. And so the fact that Obama was given a hard time and and that these politicos are reluctant to embrace what they are shows you how not
Well,
far along we
it's
are.
really bad. You know what's going to be really fun? I know we're talking about Democrats right now,
Yeah.
and that's one of their failings. But have you seen some of the stuff like that Charlie Kirk and other people like that have said about Vance's wife?
Well, no, I haven't, but I can imagine. I've talked
Oh
about
man,
Vance's
I
wife.
mean, it is just like they even have knocked his kids. I mean, I can't remember
Oh,
which guy said it, man, but they said,
well,
look, they even named their kid. They gave their kids Indian names.
yeah, one of his
So,
named Vivek.
Vivek, yeah,
Yeah,
and I'm hoping he wasn't named after Ramaswamy,
I
because
think
that's
that
got to
was
be 10 times
no,
stupid, man.
I think
But
that was before. But here's the thing about Usha that I pointed out in my previous column, and I mentioned this because she's every bit as qualified as JD Vance to be vice president. But would she ever get?
actually, she's more qualified in many ways.
Oh yeah, she's
You
smarter
know,
and more qualified.
well, I
But
don't know about smarter, okay, but because
well, smarter.
he comes off being relatively intelligent, but she has been a practicing attorney, and she has actually clerked
Yeah,
for two justices of the Supreme Court. They weren't necessarily justices at the time, on the
yeah,
SCOTUS at the time that she worked for them. But yeah, in one instance, she did clerk for a justice of the Supreme Court. So
yeah,
regardless of what their now alleged political level of political corruption, right? It's
yeah,
not just influence; it's outright political corruption, right?
yeah,
She was in a position that is extremely important. People
yeah,
really don't know. They don't really understand how the hell that works. But my parents, lawyers, two of
yeah,
them, right, were both clerks for the state Supreme Court, for the California State
mm,
Supreme Court, right? And so
yeah,
they were friends of ours. They were family friends, and I knew for the time I was in high school exactly what the relationship was between those law clerks, right,
mm,
and the justices themselves. And so the same thing is true all the way up, all
yeah.
the different tiers of the
No,
system,
well,
all
see,
the way up to the SCOTUS.
so my point with Usha Vance is here's a woman who every bit is qualified to be in, to be vice president of the United States,
Yeah.
and here she has to defer to her husband, who is not as experienced,
I don't
not
think
as
it's
I mean,
smart either. I don't think
not
he's as
really,
smart either.
not really as qualified. And I said he wasn't as smart, but here's
I think she was his ghostwriter.
yeah. Well, I just think that he certainly has given her credit for encouraging her,
Oh
and
yeah, yeah.
him rather, and this is what I think is really the crime because he gets into the white club, she doesn't, and she will never get in the front door as vice president because she's not the white male. He
You got
does. He
yeah,
gets
yeah. No, she's got the two strikes, right? She ain't
me.
white and she's a female.
And so it doesn't surprise me that all those the Charlie Kirk types are saying these racist things about because look, I think if you're 21st century diversity lovemaking, you want to mix.
Oh, I
You
remember who it
want
is now. I remember it was Fuentes.
Fuentes.
Nick Fuentes.
Oh, he's a
Yeah,
proud
the
move.
super white
Proud.
nationalist with the Latino last name. He
Yeah,
probably claims being Spanish is like being Euro,
yeah,
and then I want to see his DNA because
yeah.
being Spanish means he got a whole hell of a lot of Moro blood.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, well, see, this is the thing about. I think if you are multiracial, you're still misunderstood, and that number in America is climbing. I think they're like just about 30 million, just about 30 million in America.
Hey
I mean,
man, when I was teaching
they're the next. They're the
the
next.
when I
You
was
know.
teaching the Pan Asian American course, right?
Mm,
Which is an overview of the contemporary condition of all of the Asian American communities, right?
yeah.
I said the hallmark of the Asian American communities is going to be out marriage, okay? And it's not just going to be the Japanese Americans who had highest out marriage, right?
Mhm,
Right?
mhm.
Largely because it was women marrying out to white men.
Yeah.
Okay, but they married out to others as well, and sometimes they married out to other Asian American communities, other Asian
The
Americans,
Japanese.
right?
The Japanese.
The Japanese women.
Yeah.
Okay, so that means that the Japanese men who are heterosexual have to go find relationships outside, right, the Japanese American community as much as they
Mm,
can because the women are marrying out. And then a lot of sociologists, particularly new immigrant first generation Chinese and Filipinos, started criticizing the Japanese American community because they had this quote out marriage problem unquote,
yeah.
right? And I
Yeah.
said back in the 70s, watch out, watch out, guys, because you're
Yeah.
talking stuff now. You're going to be affected by the same thing, and for worse reasons, right?
Yeah.
Because
Well,
you guys, the Chinese, the Filipinos, and the Vietnamese, mistreat women like crazy.
yeah.
Okay, and
Yeah.
so.
But
So I said, you're going to be seeing out marriage like crazy among your own, and that's exactly what has happened, right?
yeah. Yeah.
So
But
all of that stuff happens not for such great reasons.
yeah. The thing about out marriage is, we've had this whole thing about same, fight for same sex marriage, the fight to marry who you wish. But we've had this ban on intermarriage for for decades. I mean, it wasn't totally eliminated until 1967, I think, with the Loving
Loving,
decision.
yes, yeah, Loving versus
And, and,
Virginia,
and so we've always had this thing. It was statewide. It wasn't nationwide, but
right?
state by state. I pointed out in my last column that if Vance and Usha Vance wanted to be married, because the way that Vance and Trump talk about illegal immigration and the way they want to take immigration, they want to bring it back to 1924. They want to take it back to the most uh, racist and most xenophobic immigration policy ever, 1924. And at that time, intermarriage, where was that? Nowhere. It was legal in many states in the United States and prevented.
Actually, there was a law, and I'm forgetting the name of the law, but it was 1790s.
They went back to 1790.
1790s, and basically it was intended to deny citizenship even to slaves.
For mulatto children or something like that.
No, well, I'm sorry, wrong. Even to African non-slave immigrants, okay,
Ah, yeah,
and even to free blacks, in the North. So
yeah,
then there was the question of Native Americans, right? Would they be allowed citizenship? So it goes all the way back to that.
yeah.
But the first time that a group was excluded as migrants based on national origin was anti-Chinese.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
That was the first one. Yeah, and this is the thing about intermarriage. Eh, a lot of people think, oh, that's not really an issue. It is an issue, and
yeah,
people forget it, and they,
it
because
was an issue even during the hippie days, man.
oh yeah, yeah,
People would look with disgust on young white women with black men or with
oh
not
yeah,
with any men of color.
yeah,
You know,
yeah. I know. I remember when I was dating my wife, Filipino, older Filipino guys, like my father's vintage, would say, "Oh, well, we'd be killed if we were seen with a
yeah,
woman,"
no, that's true.
and that
Yeah,
was that was
or at least severely
correct.
beaten. Sometimes they would kill the woman.
Ah, see, I mean, this is the thing. I just think that we have a lot to work out. I'd like to see Kamala Harris get a chance if Joe Biden is forced off.
He decides to step aside. Yeah, once again, people are saying he's being forced off. I think he's being forced to make the consideration. Okay,
are
they
forced to
do
look.
want him off. They do want him off, but I think they're still leaving it up to him to make that decision, however tragic it might be. If he stays
Yeah.
on, I think the Democrats are pretty much done.
I think the confusion comes because the reporting is so uneven. Because
I agree.
the people who write these stories, they get leaked upon, and the sources are anonymous. But the leakers are probably the same people who are with Joe Biden right now, saying, "Joe, here's this information." And publicly, those leakers have to say one thing in public, but they say another thing to reporters. So if you know how
Yeah, that's not new. Yeah,
yeah, if you know how journalism,
not you new behavior.
yeah, but if you understand how journalism works sometimes in this way, where the leaker inside with Biden telling him one thing tells the press another thing, and then publicly says the opposite, you can see how we have this confusion about who's right, who's wrong, and it's almost like an
I don't
editor.
think it's. Yeah, I don't. I agree with you that that's happening. I just disagree with your use of the term opposite. Because it's not quite 100 degrees opposite. They're not saying I'm completely for Joe staying in, right? But then privately they're going and saying, Joe, I think you ought to step off. I
Yeah,
think it's in they're tweening. They're saying, okay, privately I think you ought to step off, but publicly they're saying I think it's up to Joe.
or they're saying fight on. He's gonna campaign next week.
Yeah,
And
there
let's
might
go.
be.
And
I
then
think that's true. I think that there's some people who are doing that. That's
and,
definitely true.
and then those same aides are going to reporters and say, "Okay, look, you didn't get this from me, but this is what's going on." And that's how the game is played. If
Yeah,
people don't know
unfortunately.
how
Yeah,
journalists,
unfortunately. But the people, especially those people that are running his campaign, I think there's a portion of the public now that's beyond the political nerds like ourselves, right? There's a portion of the public now that is saying, "What the hell was the campaign thinking when they put him up during for
for
that
that another
debate?"
term, for another
Yeah.
term.
What are they doing? What did they do?
Well,
And so they lack credibility now. The same way that Cheadle, right, lacks credibility now in terms of running
the
the
Secret
Secret
Service.
Service, right?
I'm not
I
talking
mean,
about Don Cheadle.
no, man. Anyway, so that's and
Yeah.
that investigation has gone pretty much in the direction that it's continued to go, and there's no way that you can explain how the guy got up on the roof. Now, I don't know. There's an attribution to her that said, well, one of the reasons was that they didn't want to put somebody up there because of the extreme slope. There was no
Yeah,
extreme
I
slope.
heard that too. The extreme slope, and what I heard is that they decided to scan the inside of the building, saying that the roof was not an issue because of the slope, and besides, that would be a local jurisdiction issue. That's and the Secret Service would only
The
go inside.
slope. If you're on the downside of the slope, away from the ridge,
Mm,
okay, you're actually in a great position to sniper
yeah,
because your
I
body's not exposed. The
right.
only part that's exposed is your head and maybe part of the upper torso. Now,
Well, I
the,
mean, you're
the guys that shot him had an angle, right? Because they were higher,
yeah.
so they could immediately they had pictures of him. They showed pictures to other members of their team. They got all of that stuff,
They
and they
and
didn't.
well,
And
how
they
about
didn't.
this? How about this? This came up during the ID of the shooter. That in the first, say, someone was sourced to the New York Post and said that the shooter was Chinese. You saw that,
Oh man,
and the story was out for about, I don't know, maybe a half hour or less. It was changed when the Secret Service released a picture, and clearly the guy, and they identified him as a white guy, not as a Chinese guy. But can you imagine? I mean, the sensitivity level toward Chinese and Asian Americans was like nil. I mean, they didn't care. But then they try to cover their error.
well,
But
how about since Wen Ho Lee? Ever
yeah,
since then,
yeah,
they they shut down perfectly clear programs, right? between the U.S. joint academic programs between the United States and China, okay, because of the suspicion of a couple of people who took hard drives home,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And they did I mean they wiped out all of those programs nationally. And
Yeah.
this is during the Biden administration. This is not the Trump administration, okay? So
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
anti-Asian racism and specifically anti-Chinese fear mongering, all you
Yeah.
got to do is go back to COVID, right?
Yeah.
That's still alive. People are
Yeah.
still saying we don't know enough about the origins of COVID.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well.
and so that those arguments are still alive. It
Yeah.
was a lab. It was produced in a lab, and they gave it to us intentionally. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's how come they killed a couple of million of their own people, right?
Yeah.
That
Well,
you know
this is the
they had
thing.
to cover it.
This is the thing about that. I mean, it didn't get much play in the press that the New York, because it was just one paper, the New York Post, but the New York Post did not apologize. They did not formally
The
apologize.
post,
They
man.
just, well, they did not even formally acknowledge the error, which a decent, ethical
It's
news
the post. You
organization would.
see, you say decent.
Right. It is the Post. It is the Post. But still, it
You know what I call
warned.
it? I call it the urinating post, right?
Yeah.
That's the post you pee on.
Post used to be a good paper, but yeah, I mean, I'm talking about 20, 30 years ago, but not now. All right, uh, so the shooter aside, um, what is the
Democrats.
next? Huh?
Yeah, what are they doing?
Yeah, what
Uh,
the Democrat? I'm really saddened that the Democrats can't take advantage of Donald Trump really kind of resetting with. I mean, because
it'll
I
happen.
think
I think
I
it's going to happen.
well,
Just give it some time.
I think the sympathy period for Donald Trump is over. I mean, people saw that speech. They said, "Oh, okay, no sympathy," because we're not going to get the change, not the change man, not the change attitude toward politics. We're going to get the same old division. Uh, who's out there? Who am I going to vote for? Joe Biden? And they can't make the case for Joe Biden because the Democrats are still arguing amongst themselves. So
Yeah.
that's
Well, my position is really simple. No matter what Joe does, and I don't care how good his public appearances are, and his the interviews that he's done since then are relatively short. That's number one. Number two, he has been asked some hardball questions. Okay,
yeah,
but but his responses are yeah, okay, acceptable, right?
yeah,
They're not strong, right?
yeah,
They don't demonstrate a kind of firm resolve. Okay,
uh,
even though the words tend to express firm resolve, you don't get that, emotionally, right?
uh,
And just physically from his face, from his visual messaging, and so he's going to be scrutinized all the way through the rest of his candidacy.
yeah,
And every time he's going to come away incrementally losing a bit more.
yeah.
That's my perspective.
So he's not going to be able to make up any of those
No,
lost
there's
points. And
no way.
the lost point thing is it's critical because, I mean, it may seem like margin of error, they're close,
Oh
but
man,
man, it really is.
you need a huge margin, and the reason I say that is because you want to win back both houses. Nothing's going to move, and people are going to be even more frustrated. They don't remember at all what it was like under Obama.
Yeah,
I mean, if they're incapable of even remembering what the hell it was really like under Trump, right? How much more, going back another 6, 8, 10 years further than that to figure out, okay, before Obama, this is the way it was, right? Then we
yeah,
had the Great Recession, and this guy pulled us out of it, right? And then they say, well, he spent a lot of money. Yes, he did, but he did what he had to do to get the economy right again, and he did what he had to do was to keep NATO intact. Okay, he did what he had to do to make a deal with Iran, right? And he also got he stood up Putin. He stood up Xi. Okay,
yeah,
and any Kim that you want to stand up
yeah,
in South Korea, right? Yeah, whichever one, whichever one's still alive.
yeah, yeah. Well, I just think that I was looking at the polls as you were talking, and uh, the only poll President Biden's approval rating is up to 43%, according to the Rasmussen Group, and that's not bad. I mean, it's better than 38,
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I mean,
but
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 like
it's
I
not
said,
good. And then but forget the general nationwide polls. The
yeah, you want the
polls in the key battleground states.
yeah, Arizona, Nevada, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania.
Arizona, Trump six, up
Yep.
six. Trump four, up four in Georgia. Trump up 1.7 in Michigan, so very close there. Nevada, Trump up
That's the
5.1.
only one where he was close. How about Wisconsin?
Yeah, Wisconsin, it's Trump 3.3.
Right.
Pennsylvania, Trump 4.5. North Carolina, Trump 5.7. Nevada is surprising because Nevada should be a lot of Filipinos there, unions, but Nevada is 5.1 Trump.
What I'm
So,
hearing from there's a plan. I'm thinking about joining it, but there's a plan to do some work in northern Nevada. So I'm hearing, southern Nevada is okay. The Vegas area, Henderson, that's okay.
yeah,
It tends to vote blue, but it's Reno and that area around
Reno,
Reno, the burbs around Reno, uh,
Sparks. I used to live in Reno a long
Sparks.
time ago.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah, the only reason we ever went there was because we were up skiing, or
yeah,
snowboarding, right?
yeah.
So
I actually love Reno, and I lived there for about a year, and it's like San Francisco with snow in some ways. Yeah. That's why I saw it because it was a lot easier to commute, or not. I didn't really commute, but I drove a lot from San Francisco to Reno. Not that 4 hour trip, four and a half.
yeah,
Um,
it's not that bad.
yeah, and it's
Actually, if you want to break the law, you can do it even faster than that. But
oh, I'm sure, but I
yeah.
didn't have to break the law, and I lived in town, and
Sure, sure, Emil.
you get to know the people, and the casino crowd. That's for the tourists, but there's a core group of people who actually live in the town, and they were interesting, and they were mostly European immigrant types,
Yeah,
Italian.
that's right. That's right.
It was, and
There's a lot of retirees from the Bay Area.
well, right now, but when I was there, they had a chance to stop all that casino bloat and to stop the development, and they did for 1 year, and then they lost. And now that's why Reno looks the way it does. I mean, if they had been successful and they kept it up, it could have been, you wouldn't have, it still would have been the biggest little city. But now, I don't know. It's kind of,
So you're talking about suburban conservatism right now?
well, I think they've got the suburban stuff there now.
Oh
But
yeah. I
yeah,
mean,
but
I remember the last time we drove in, we were
yeah,
surprised at how far. I mean,
yeah,
the
it just the
space
sprawl.
between. Yeah, yeah,
The sprawl just go, but no, but the votes were to try to control the casino sprawl, to
yeah,
control
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
casinos overbuilding, and they lost that. And when they lost that, they lost to all the developers who said, "Oh, well, let's build houses here." And so they're trying to make it a North Vegas, but I don't know. I don't know. Vegas. I try to like Vegas a little bit, but I think Reno's always been kind of funkier, and so anyway, and slightly more democratic, although the entire state is kind of up for grabs, I think, right? It should
Yep,
be.
yep.
So all right, so what's your feeling about Joe? Is he going to survive a week, or in a week's time where we can see get to see?
If he hangs on, I'm hoping that he hangs on because the strategy is agreed to by some of the people that are trying to get him to step off right now, and
Mhm.
that would be the healthiest thing. And we'll see. I think he'll probably make a decision within the next week and a half.
They
Uh,
say the next 72 hours is going to be crucial for him. Uh, I think that if he gets to the 72 hours and feels well, and he sees some positive things because people are dumping on Trump because of his speech, and
yeah,
you know
I don't think the stuff on Trump is. I think it's going to take time to mine the negative aspects of his speech. I don't think it's going to last that long. I disagree with you that he's going to lose out on the sympathy thing. I think he's going to continue to do that as long as he can. Uh,
Yeah, he's going to continue to do it. But
well,
I'm thinking that look, the Trumpers are sympathetic. The ardent Trumpers will be always
of
sympathetic. But
course.
he had a chance
Well,
to
it's
get
worse than that. He's
everyone else.
He's worse than that. He's Messiah number two now.
Yeah, well, yeah,
The heavy Trumpers are saying this was a sign from God, right?
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, he's become the Orange Jesus Junior. You know,
Hey,
so
did you see Franklin when Franklin Graham was praying for Trump? I said, okay, look, I apologize to all the atheists in the crowd because this is not the way it is in America. This outward prayer like this, and where it's really super focused. And I said, the least you could do, Franklin Graham, is pray for the opposition. And as soon as I said that, they said, and let's pray for our Democratic brothers and sisters. He didn't mention Biden by name, but let's pray for those who. But that's the thing. You go down that path and say God's with you, but then that means he's with you, but not with the other guy. He's with the other guy too. That's the problem when you go with God. When you go with God, you got to go with all because God, he
I
doesn't
don't
play favorites.
know. I don't know. I mean, there was a certain priest that gained great popularity in the Depression era, all the
Oh
way up,
yeah,
including
which one?
Father Conklin.
Oh, Conklin. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I was thinking, you mean Bishop Fulton Sheen? No,
Oh no.
no, he's later.
Actually, I
He's
used to
later.
watch his show as a
I
kid.
know Sheen is kind of cool.
Yeah, yeah,
He's a little Paul Lindy.
yeah, yeah. Sure, but
Circle gets
yeah,
square.
yeah. But at least he was doing. I found a lot of his positions questionable, and he definitely tended to the conservative and all that.
Yeah,
But I'm thinking about Buckley,
yeah. Oh,
and
Buckley. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So
Buckley.
yeah, I haven't watching him and Vidal go off
Yeah,
was a real treat. I remember. I think I was in. I don't know why I had such a interest in hearing those guys talk on Sunday shows, but I think I was around seventh, eighth grade, and that's when I knew I was really out of step because
yeah.
I'd go
See,
to school and try and talk about that stuff, and it was like, oh, the only person who talked to me was like the principal, the school principal.
yeah, yeah, Dan. Yeah, Buckley. You watching Buckley? Go get a girlfriend, Dan. Go get a. Here's some condoms. Here's some
The
condoms.
school principal was a nun, and she wasn't telling me to go get a girlfriend.
Okay, let me take back the condoms. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway,
All right. So, all right,
she was
Dan.
cool.
We were going to talk about Project 2025, but here, I think it would be a shame to really get into it right now, considering, we should be winding down. But next time we're going to get into it. But
Well,
give me
I
a
can
sense
give you
about
a wrap. Okay, I'll do it.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, I'll do it.
Give me a sense at why. Because one of the things that
Why
the
is it
Biden Harris
important?
folks
First of
said.
all,
Well, yeah. But Biden Harris, the campaigners said, "Hey, look, Donald Trump in his speech didn't mention Project 2025,
that's right.
and he didn't even mention abortion.
And
So he's slight,
he was denying that he had anything to do with it, even though everybody that wrote uh, chapters in
yeah,
it were associated with his administration. Some people were actually paid members of
oh
his
yeah.
administration.
Hey,
Vote, for example, Vote was OMB, right? He
yeah,
was the director of the Office of Management Budget.
yeah. Hey,
Anyway, so why
well,
is
wait.
it
Also, don't forget Peter Navarro, the jailbreak.
important? Yeah,
He
that's
got
right.
out of
The
jail.
newly released convict.
Yeah,
Yes, yes, and he got the best welcome.
yeah,
He got
yeah.
a
He did.
standing ovulation.
Yeah.
The-
People related to him much more than you would think. But for a
he's
guy
he's a
who,
martyr. He's a martyr, man. I mean, he did his time, and he was doing it all for. And if I don't know, people must not watch his interviews because even when he did interviews on Fox, it was like, oh man, is this guy questionable sanity or what?
well, the thing is, his crime was he refused the subpoena.
Yeah,
So
that's
I mean,
right.
So if he refused a congressional subpoena, if you're a law and order
Contempt.
guy and you
Contempt.
refuse a congressional subpoena, you're kind of a hypocrite.
Yeah. Oh, really? Oh
Yeah,
no. It's- oh no. Don't say that. But anyway, okay, so let's get to the point. Project 2025.
yeah.
Okay,
So
why is it important?
yeah,
Because it is a draft of the kind of activity that not just Mr. Trump, this is beyond Trump.
mm,
Okay, here's my point. This stuff is well put together. It's
yeah,
well designed. Okay, the premises are things. They're criticisms of existing issues. They're based on real issues that have been happening in American society for a number of decades. So these things, once again, are accumulation of somewhat scholastic enterprise, right? Where people are researching what other people have been criticizing over the past 50, 60 years. And it's easy to do that because the freaking Republican and conservative agenda has always been to reverse everything that happened since Social Security, right? So
right,
you got to go all the way back to the beginning of Social Security, and you got to go to Civil Rights Act, Voting Rights Act, everything that happened around affirmative action, all the way up to expansion of Medicare and all that. You know, that's during the 60s with the Johnson administration, right? And
yeah,
so, these are all things that they've been wanting to reverse since then, okay? And they kept failing. But as they failed, they learned where and when you can make changes within the governmental bureaucracy. So, what this is about is a plan for how to manipulate the entire governmental bureaucracy,
right.
right?
How to redo it, and
How to
it
redo
goes
it
to
completely,
and
okay?
you
And
do it easily by getting rid of workers who are civil servant workers and make them appointees. So they're beholden to whoever's in power.
well, they don't want to. Okay, you're right that they want to get rid of all of the existing deep state civil service workers. Okay, and they do want to replace them with political appointees. They do, however, preserve civil service examinations. They want qualified people. Okay,
Right. Because
but
they
they
believe in
but
meritocracy. They believe in the
yeah,
merit.
exactly. So they're pushing meritocracy again, and they're saying, yeah, you got to keep the civil service exams, but there's been improvements, and this is really interesting. They say there were improvements suggested even by Democratic presidents and during the Democratic administrations, and they cite specifically Carter and Obama. And what they do is it's accurate, right? So what I'm telling you is this stuff is well enough researched that they can justify their criticisms,
Mm.
and they can even justify their criticism from the perspective of what Democrats tried to do when they were in office. Okay? So
Yeah.
they're saying we just want to continue that process which was taken up by Trump, but then it was annulled by Biden as soon as he got back into office. So
So,
they're reversing reversals.
yeah.
That's what.
So tell me when Trump says, "Oh, that's just some idea." You get a think tank. This is what think tank
Well, they say they
execs
were. Well,
do.
but he earlier said 50,000 people.
Yeah. Well, I'm
You
just
can't really.
saying. I'm just saying. Can the Trump team and the GOP, because the GOP wrote a platform that no one even cared about, no one talked about it, and they took some aspects of what's in Project 2025, but they kind of lightened it up in some places. My point is, I mean, can the Trump team say, oh, that can they distance themselves from it enough to say, yeah, that's just some intellectual, hogwash that some people dreamed up. But we're going to do what we do because we're now in and the
Uh,
administration.
okay, it
We
all
can do,
comes down to what the Democrats do, and
yeah,
for example, they have to keep bringing it up. They have to put out ads and do all that stuff. They have to make the right kind of choices now so they can afford to put those ads out there. And
yeah,
when they do make public appearances, they have to raise always Project 2025 and show the connections. And
yeah,
the easiest way to do that is now Vance. That's the easiest way to do that. And so
because
I was really happy when I heard that he's going to go off, and they have come to a mutual agreement. I think it's going to be on CBS,
Mm.
and they've come to a mutual agreement that he's going to face off with Kamala. Okay.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Oh well, check it
Okay,
out.
that's good. It's good. I think that's good. I think she'll
Hell
prosecute
yes.
the case, and then he'll try to be the eloquent former hillbilly turned venture capitalist.
Well, and he's got a wife that can help him prep. You
Yeah,
know. So
right. But the thing about this Project 2025 is that it's sort of built in where there's built-in deniability by the on the Republican side because they can say, hey, we're not doing anything like that. Yeah,
yeah, but
but
I
people
just
need to
told you,
know
all you
it's
got to do
fake.
is show the connections. All you have to do is show the connections. Here's the people who wrote it, and here's the positions they held during the Trump administration. That's connection one. Connection two, here's what Trump actually did that
Yeah.
is in Project 2025. There are some things that he actually did, right?
Yeah.
And,
Well,
and yeah.
yeah. I got some like a summary here. Here's what they want to do. They want to cut over Project 2025 will cut overtime protections for 4.3 million workers. So I imagine that's government workers or maybe just all workers. No overtime protections. So as you read this, you see that it clearly helps the corporates. It clearly helps the bosses. Doesn't help the workers at all. Here's another thing: stop efforts to lower prescription drug prices. That's really been a Biden thing to lower prices. Now they're going to stop and say, "Hey,
Well, I differ. It's true that Biden got it done, right, in some respects, right? Particularly, and he started with insulin, right? But actually, during the Obama administration, along with right the ACA, was also an attempt to deal with Medicare, dealing with big pharma. That was part of all that package,
yeah,
okay? But they didn't get it done, so Biden got it done. So
yeah,
they
all
want to
right."
reverse that,
Yeah,
okay?
so that's another reversal. Limit access to food assistance, which an average of
They
more
want to
than
make people work for it. The
40
same thing
million
as
people.
workfare. Same thing as Clinton's workfare.
Yeah.
So you can see that there's a connection again with the Democratic administration that tried that kind of activity first.
All right. How
Work,
about workfare? All right. How about eliminate the Head Start early education program?
and that's what they want. They want to eliminate the whole education department.
Yeah.
Okay, that's really their objective, and they tried. They almost did. I mean, they virtually had an elimination of the education department when they had what's her face in there, the Secretary of Education,
Yeah.
who
Terrible.
was one of
Terrible.
the heirs of
DeVos.
yeah, yeah, that's right,
She's
DeVos, whose brother was the head
Amway.
of Blackwater. Yeah,
Uh, she's an Amway heiress or something.
that's right. It was Amway. Yeah.
So, cut American Rescue Plan programs that have created or saved 220,000 jobs. So that's a Democratic thing. Restrict access to medication abortion. That's a
I don't know why they're mentioning the American Rescue Plan because that was timed out. That's timed out. It's not working anymore, and that's one of the reasons that people are feeling pinched now because the American Rescue Plan was set up to cover some of the losses suffered by people from the COVID epidemic. You
oh.
know, the job losses and all the rest of that. Small businesses as well.
Now, here's a thing for people who are over 65. Push more of the 33 million people enrolled in Medicare towards Medicare Advantage
Yeah,
and other worse private
privatization,
options. Yeah, it's
privatization, exactly, which was attempted by Bush too,
yeah. I
and
mean,
and it was
I
the
mean,
third rail. I mean, it fried him.
but they make Medicare Advantage seem like, oh, this is so good. You go to Kaiser, you pay one thing, or if you don't pay anything at all, if you're well, it's great. But as soon as you get sick, you start to pay. And Medicare Advantage is not as good as the Medicare supplements you can buy that will supplement Medicare. And so the 33 million who are in Medicare who have Medicare or Medigap supplements, they've got the Rolls Royces. They want to put people on the bus, on the
That's right.
Medicare Advantage bus, where the treatment is not going
They
to be.
want to do a portion of what was successfully passed under the ACA. That's
Yeah.
basically so. It's a partial reversal of ACA. That's basically it.
Yeah, and what's really bad about look, the healthcare system in general is bad in terms of just pure communication. I mean, you've got to really be sick for people to jump and do anything like customer service. But I mean, my experience, when I have these, when I just go to the doctor for something, I I'm just amazed at the difficulty just to get some basic service. So I think the government has to do a lot more, and whatever it is, whatever it takes to get people the best care, which is Medicare, not Medicare Advantage. That's what I'm for. And Project 2025 wants to push people toward Medicare Advantage.
They
Okay,
want, well, okay. So the key, if you want to make a generalized statement, they're
yeah.
for privatization. So they once again want to move down towards privatization, and it becomes even clearer when you now. When did a lot of that stuff get done? What is ALEC, right? The American Legislative Exchange, right? Council,
Mm,
ALEC. These people are lobbyists who put together laws, right, as proposals, right, as legislative bills, and they literally sit at the same table with elected legislators in all of the different states, and they sit down, especially the red states
mm.
and the purple states. They sit down and they literally give them canned, pre-written bills,
Oh
and
yeah, yeah.
goes to the legislature and they pass those. So you
Look,
do that.
it's just like the PR people giving reporters, hey, here's a pre-written story. Just put your name on it.
Yeah, but
And
the
the
stuff
lazy ones will. The ones
Yeah,
who have
but this
those
stuff
stats.
turns into laws, right?
Yeah.
That get passed that affect quality of life in those states. And the people who are writing the laws aren't even elected officials. They're just because of the power relationship and the relationship between right donations, contributions to election campaigns. Right, they have that kind of influence, and so they what they want to do is increase that level of influence and to control outright control of the whole federal government structure.
Yeah. All right. So I'm just going to read one more because there's a couple, but I want to end our thing today. Roll back civil rights protections across
Yeah, it's a biggie.
roll back civil rights protections across multiple fronts, including cutting diversity, equity, and inclusion related programs. I mean, that is one of the things that Microsoft did like a week ago. And I'm not saying there's a coincidence or there's a connection, but it is a coincidence that this big thing that we're having today with all these tech problems at Microsoft.
You mean it's
Uh,
a everybody no fly zone?
yeah, yeah. But no,
Everybody's no fly.
so DEI, affirmative action, LGBTQ rights, healthcare, education. I mean, the rollback, we've been seeing that.
It's anti
And,
wokeism. They come out and say it
yeah,
in their policy premises.
yeah.
They say woke, and they make it very clear we're anti woke. We have this woke administration, we have a woke bureaucracy, and they're attacking that wokeism.
And
Right?
wokeism, it's not even a thing.
It's not real.
Yeah,
It's not even real.
we're talking
They made it
about
up. Okay,
yeah,
so the African American community comes up with this concept of woke, which means people are conscious. They are socio-politically conscious, right? That's all it meant to be woke, right? And because it's black, white people who are anti-black and anti-people of color grab onto woke and they start calling it an ism, right? And then they attribute characteristics to wokeism that don't even exist, right? That's
yeah,
what you're saying. It's not even a
yeah.
thing. And
It's
you're
not,
absolutely right. It was a
it's
racist concoction.
totally made up. In fact, all this stuff that we see, people this didn't come out this time around at the convention, but a lot of, I mean, it did in a more subtle way. I mean, every time at this convention, when you heard people talk about who are the bad guys, who is making America feel less safe, who is making people, America less great, in terms of the economy, and everything pointed back to illegal immigrants. It's always the illegal immigrants.
That's right.
They were like the multi scapegoat for everything. It's illegal immigrants, and it's like that was the racism. And and the fact is, the people who you saw in that room, although they would show the Hawaii delegation because you got Asian people there, but it's mostly white. And the bottom line for why Trumpism has risen over the last 10 years is because of the demographic situation. You know, who's going to be among the voters? It's going to be the blacks and Hispanics and Asians, and the whites are diminishing, which is why JD Vance and birth rate. This is what's weird though, because he's married to an Indian woman. He's going to have multiracial babies. They're not going to be white babies, but they're going to be treated like white because if your daddy's white, you know.
It doesn't matter, daddy, mommy, whichever way. If they're citizens, you get birthright citizenship. They've
Yeah,
been wanting to cut that out.
yeah,
I
they're
mean,
going
that
to
was
cut
a
that.
big deal.
There's parts in Project 2025,
Yeah,
but they
yeah.
want that out. They want
Oh
that
yeah,
out.
definitely, definitely.
All right,
Um, oh,
so
what was
here,
I going to say? Well, see, here's the funny part, right? Right, the two ethnic groups among the Asian Americans that are highest pro-Trump voters are Vietnamese and Filipinos. Vietnamese number one, Filipinos not too distant, number two. Okay, 10% roughly of the entire Filipino population in the United States is probably TNT, standing for Tago ng Tago, which means hide
undocumented.
and hide, which means they're undocumented. Okay, 10%. So 1 out of 10 Filipinos potentially, right, is undocumented. And so, what the hell sense does it make that they vote for people who don't want us here? Documented, undocumented, right? When Filipinos voted for 187,
Yep, 187.
187, right? I
Yep.
said, okay, that's really cool. What makes you think that they're going to notice that you got your papers on you? Okay,
Mhm.
because it's not it's we they got statistics on how many of you all are probably undocumented, so you're all suspect, man, right?
Yeah.
And so people were criticizing me for making those kinds of statements until three guys from Silicon Valley ended up getting crossing the border down by in Arizona. They were put on a freaking bus, and they were American freaking citizens. And I said, okay, wow, you didn't have your passport or your citizenship. You couldn't prove that stuff. What? Your driver's license wasn't good enough. You know what? But up until that moment, Filipinos saying that's not us. That's not
Yeah.
us. It's the goddamn Mexicans. It's those freaking Latinos. That's not us. And I said, 1 in 10 of y'all is undocumented, man. You're overstaying your visas like it's going out of style. Okay? I worked for attorneys with attorneys whose clients were getting shut out of here by the INS. It was the INS at the time, right? It
Right.
wasn't
Right.
ICE yet. Okay? And I
Well.
said, and then you're gonna tell me that you're not gonna get affected by that? Fine.
Yeah.
Go ahead
Well.
and believe that.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I think the Filipinos like the law and order. They also like the
Don't forget the Catholicism.
Catholicism. Yeah. Well, so I think that's a good summary. We'll get into more. We'll take out a little piece every week because Project 2025 we can't not talk about it. But I think that
Well, my big warning is it's believable.
oh
My
yeah,
big warning is the premises in many instances are legitimate premises. They color them badly. They exaggerate, right? The total character of the problem. In other words, they over quantify. The same thing as Trump saying, right, hundreds of thousands of people are dying. Right? I mean, that's literally what he said. Hundreds of thousands of people are dying. And he also mentioned,
thousands,
yeah, are
thousands.
dying because of their presence. They're coming from prisons. They're bringing disease. They're rapists. They're murderers. Like it was the same
MS-13,
ride down the golden escalator. You know,
MS-13.
yeah.
The
So
gangs, the
yeah, just
gangs.
just don't eat burritos.
Yeah,
Just
I
don't.
mean that's where the racism came out to me, and yet he's also trying. Trump is also trying to make it a big tent. So there's Amber Rose out there, the rapper, and I don't know if she
Yeah,
did
but
it.
what was she? She was there for the purpose of saying, I don't. He's not a racist.
Right. Well, also to with her 24, 23, 24 million influencers, she was there to say, "Come on, this guy's okay." He the left one. Her quote is, "The left wanted me to hate Trump and hate his followers, but I'm home here." That's what she said. But of
Yeah,
course, she's making $12 million.
that's right.
She made that on her music. So it's a oh, here's the thing: class. It's class, not race. That's what JD Vance. That's what JD Vance's ascension proves. That's not race
Hmm.
on everything. Affirmative action. So forget civil rights. They'll say they'll say, look, it's not about race. It's not. It's about class, because
Well, I think
class enlarges everything. It makes everyone in under the fold. You can help a white person, a black person, an Asian person. If you help a poor person, we're going to help poor people. You rich people see that this is where the
see
argument falls apart.
here's the
But they
problem.
love rich people.
Remember when Republicans during the Obama administration were saying the Democrats are waging class war?
Mm.
And I said, yeah, the Democrats aren't waging class war. The class war has always been on,
Right,
and
right,
the
right, right.
people who have been winning is you guys. So there again, it's an exercise in projection. They were the guys who had won the class war. The unions were in heavy decline, right? That Reagan, when he fired off 10,000 packs, right,
Mm.
at once, all at once, that sent a really clear message. At the same time, inflation was happening, and the two big unions, the Teamsters and the AFL-CIO,
Mm.
contributed to inflation
Yeah.
because at the time, everybody else was hurting. Fuel prices were ridiculous, right? The OPEC countries were playing with the faucet, right? We're going to shut down oil production and all that, and we were dependent much more so
Mhm.
on petroleum products coming into the United States at the time. So here we are, right, victimized by all of this stuff, and these guys all benefited from it, and they continue to benefit from it, right? All throughout that period, they wrote a tax structure that even before Trump already favored, right, the
Mhm.
biggest owners of and controllers of the stock market and of particular corporations. People don't, my highest grade in law school was corporations.
All right, and with that, we say it's time to celebrate the weekend, Dan.
Okay, how do we do that? Let's see.
I don't know. I think. Well,
Man,
I
let's see.
I think I'm
Wait,
just
wait.
glad. I'm
All
just
Star Week is over, so baseball is
no,
back.
no. The
It's still
WNBA All
happening.
Stars. The
Oh,
WNBA
oh,
All
oh,
Star
okay.
game. The Caitlin Clark fans out there.
Sure. No, I'm liking it. I've actually been watching.
They're not bad.
The
I'd rather
the
watch
uh,
it.
the I've been watching the G League players just to see what our talent pool looks like,
Oh, the
and
G League.
Warriors are looking good. Warriors are looking good, man.
Plowden, pretty good. And
Yep.
they signed
Plowden's
him.
good, and then Heald just signed on, right? So we got to see what that guy's going to be like.
Yeah, but buddy, I mean, I hope he's better than when he was at Sacramento. 'Cause he
Yeah.
like a gun, undisciplined gun. But
40%, 40%
well,
threes.
you
Yeah.
weren't getting any defense out of Klay Thompson anyway. So
Depended on the day. Sometimes he was good, sometimes he wasn't. It
but
depended on the game. There were times when he was on, defensively, and he was really good. And it had a lot to do with whether or not Draymond was on. Your
Draymond,
not so favorite defensive player.
yeah, I just think things would be better if they got rid of Draymond.
I don't know,
I
man.
know they need like an enforcer guy, but I think he's the negatives. I mean, Steve Kerr loves him. Everyone loves him, but I don't
Yeah,
know.
he's not. Yeah, well, you don't hang around with people that have that kind of personality. I have, and I
My
kind of understand
my
that.
first wife was like that. What do you mean?
Oh, wow! I want to see. Is she good one on one? Can we shoot a few?
I could dunk on her. I could dunk on her.
Can you do some? Can she dunk?
I could dunk on her. I could posterize her. Hey, you know, the WNBA. I like watching the WNBA.
Yeah, me too.
And Caitlin Clark is actually much better than people say. Although, uh,
I don't know why have they been playing her down? Oh, we're going way over time now, man. Shit.
People don't like people. I don't know because well, number one, they say, "Oh, well, thanks for noticing us. We've been here all along, not just because this white girl showed up." And
Yeah.
that's
See,
unfair.
that's not good though. That's
It's
not good.
unfair. It's
You
unfair
know?
because there actually have been really talented white players, Diana
No, no kidding.
Taurasi,
No
Sabrina
kidding. But see,
Ionescu. I mean, a lot
even
of
in
talented.
even in the NBA, highly talented white players were always respected, even by the African American players.
Yeah, and
You
even
know,
highly
and
qualified Filipino players like Ray Townsend.
yeah. Sort of Filipino. Yeah.
Sort of, he was half. He was
Yeah,
half.
but we got a sort of Filipino, in the Olympics, man. I
Yeah,
mean,
and we got a sort of Filipino coach,
yeah. Well, that's
Spolstra.
why that's who I'm talking
Spolstra.
about, man. He's getting to enjoy Paris. You know,
Yes.
that's
Yeah,
pretty. I think that's pretty cool. I think
it is good. But I find that when you get all star men, it's boring. All star men are boring. Hey, these guys are too tall. They're too fast. They're too. They're too
I
good.
don't.
They're boring.
Oh, geez. I'm
They're boring.
totally.
Yeah, that's
I
why I
don't know.
like the women. I like
You
the.
know, the guy. You're right that they're way tall and they're
Yeah,
rebuffed. They're way buffed, man. They got upper body strength like it's going out of style,
yeah.
and so it makes Curry look really small,
He
right?
looks smaller
And
than he is.
okay,
The
that
guy's
makes it
six
more
one.
interesting. That makes it more interesting when the guy can hit, when he can get in and go to the rim, and against these huge dudes, right, with great upper
Yeah,
body strength. That
yeah.
makes it interesting, man.
Well,
Where
it's like going in. You're like when I've covered the NBA and I've been in the locker room and I see these guys and it's like you enter into a forest.
yeah,
As they talk. Hey, so
yeah,
you know,
that's right.
but I mean,
And you have trouble getting light. You have trouble getting light from
right, but from afar, like say, like they're on the other side of the gym, and you see them, and there's even from afar, like from like 200 feet away, they look big.
yeah,
You
oh
say,
yeah,
oh, they're coming through the tunnel now, and oh my God, those guys are like they're just huge, and the girls, the women, excuse me, the women, not that bad. You might There are no 7 foot women. They might be 6'5", 6'3", maybe the tall ones. But Caitlin Clark is 6'1",
right.
and they're more normal size. I just think I I relate to their skill level. I mean, they're great. They're world class, but I mean, they're good shooters. Some of them are really good shooters.
Yeah, yeah.
More. I think more efficient. Anyway, WNBA All Star Game this weekend. All right, so Dan, is it hot? Where you live? You're
Yeah, actually, there's a breeze. This past year and a half, 2 years has been the windiest experience in my life.
really the
Yes,
windiest.
there's constant wind. I mean, I really regret that I don't have access to my cousin's sloop anymore because it
Wow.
you could go sailing every freaking day and have a really great time out on the bay because wind is really consistent. It is only maybe an hour or two at most each day where it's relatively quiet. The rest of the time, there is either constant wind or much less enjoyable gusty
Yeah.
wind, and so it would be hot if it wasn't for the fact that we have gusty wind down here. It
And
was going to be hot today.
and
I'm
the
going to check.
fog, the
Right
fog.
now, it's 75 here where I'm
Oh, that's hot. That's hot for the city.
for the city. Well, it's open sunlight, and like I said, there's wind, but 75.
Yeah. See, in my neck of the woods, I am. I think it's about. God,
It's
what
supposed to
is
be
it?
100.
Yeah, it's it's 104 outside.
Oh yeah,
104, 104,
no man, you can fry
104.
eggs.
It's not. No, no. Yes, you can't. You need something to conduct the heat, and not just
No,
the
you have to put it
sidewalk.
right on the ground. You have to put it right on the sidewalk.
No, you got to put it on something like metallic so that it magnifies the heat. So it's not I tried that story in Reno
You
once.
tried to fry it,
Yeah, you can't. You can't.
and it
You
didn't
can't fry
work,
it.
huh?
It's metaphorically it works, but it doesn't work.
Okay,
And
yeah,
it's interesting that's like every beginning reporter in a small market where it hits 100 for like 10 straight days. Well, let's try
Frying an egg.
frying an egg on a sidewalk.
All right.
So anyway, all right. So Dan, well, listen. Thank you very much.
Fry an egg.
We'll see what happens with Joe Biden.
All right. Stay calm, stay cool,
Stay
and
cool.
yeah,
And,
watch the women battle it out.
yeah.
All
All
stars.
right. And there he goes, Daniel Phil Gonzalez, my friend, friend of the show, College of Ethnic Studies, San Francisco State University, Professor Emeritus, Asian American Studies. Thank you, Dan. I mean, we talk about these things because we want people to know that there are two Filipinos who talk about these things. And we don't just talk about, who makes the best lumpia or who makes the best sisig, or is it fair that, people don't use tofu in sisig more often, because a tofu sisig, oh my God. And when I go to New York, there's a restaurant on First Avenue, tofu sisig. It's good. Tofu sisig. You don't have to go the meat route. You don't have to go the meat route. Tofu sisig. So anyway, yeah. So enjoy the weekend. I think it was kind of illuminating to see the Republicans do their thing. Read my columns on the ALDEF blog, the Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund, ALDEF, AALDEF.org/blog. I say no shows. I'm not doing any shows. I ought to. I got to find a venue. Do my one-man show, Emil, Amok, Lost NPR host. Somewhere. I'm going to do it somewhere the next month or two. And then, and I do some stand-up. Probably not this week anywhere, but if I nail something down, I'll tell you when I'm showing, when I'm appearing. In the meantime, have a good weekend. I don't know what's going to happen. I guess you can stop praying for Donald Trump, as I said in my piece, but maybe we pray for Joe. We pray for Joe to make the right decision. I don't know what it's going to be. I mean, I've gone back and forth. He doesn't want to back down. I don't know how dire it is that, that he couldn't win, or if people were united, they couldn't win. But I think maybe if we keep this debate on, we may be in that circular, the Democrats may be in that circular firing squad. And that's just a feeling I have. Okay, so we end with a little loving kindness. It helps. I'm girding up for Trump with a little. I mean, if Trump wins, I mean, I feel more confident that he's not going to win after seeing him do his speech at the finale, RNC finale. But I would like for the Democrats to get it together and say, hey, here's our guy or gal. But meditation is helping. Meditation has learned it's okay to let go. Let it go. And so, as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. Emil Guillermo here. Till next time. Mahal.